I'm Caitlin Patterson, and this is my first year with the Craftsbury Green Racing Project, and I'm having a great time so far this season with the GRP. A majority of the team just came back from the Midwest. We went out earlier than the American Birkie so that we could do the Madison sprints in Madison, Wisconsin first. And then a week later, the next weekend, was the Birkie. So the city sprint in Madison, which was the first weekend we were in the Midwest, we were doing a sprint around the Capitol building in downtown Madison. And it was pretty cool because they laid out snow on the streets circling the Capitol, and the Capitol is a big, imposing building, actually quite a lot like the US Capitol, so it was pretty cool. So we were doing the Madison sprints, which was a classic sprint and a skate sprint. Classic sprint on Saturday, which ended up being just a double pole race. No one in the whole field, including all of the women, used any kickwax, or I guess at least all of the top women. We all double poled it on skate skis, and then the next day was the skate sprint. And the format was set up, the trail was a little narrower on the streets than a normal sprint, so the heats had just 4 skiers in each rather than the usual 6. I had never done a city sprint before Madison. I'd seen the one in Quebec City, the World Cup, which was very cool, but also very different from Madison. But both of them, city sprints, are just really cool because they attract people who wouldn't normally be at a ski race, and they have a little different vibe than a normal ski race. So the one in Madison was pretty cool because even though it was a fairly flat course, just going around one block of the city, there were 4 corners, so it was actually a really fun experience, and it was better racing quality than maybe I'd expected. In the skate race for the women, I ended up 3rd place, Claire was 4th place, and Maria was in the B final. And then our men's team, they did very well in qualifying particularly, didn't have any trouble there really. But the qualifying was extremely close together, so it wasn't like the qualifier result could really indicate necessarily how the finals would end up. And so on the first day, we had 1 person in the B final, and on the skate day, the second day, Dylan McGuffin was in the A final. I think it was a really cool event, certainly not nearly as many spectators as the World Cup in Quebec, or quite that same atmosphere, but the city sprint event has a lot of potential. Okay, so the American Birkie, there's quite a lot of hype about it, and also a lot of talking, whether good or bad. Some people really like it, some people don't. Sometimes those sentiments are aligned with Midwesternness or not. The people out there, skiers, are really friendly. A lot of master skiers out previewing the trail also, and a few other competitive elite skiers or wax testers out testing. Associated with the American Birkie, there's this thing called Birkie fever, which is kind of an expression of everyone's enthusiasm for the race, and also just the really intense people who are just so pumped up for this race. And there's even a Birkie radio station, and we listened to the radio station on the way to the race, driving to Telemark, and there are a lot of Birkie songs that have been written about the race, which are quite funny. I think around the high point of the course, around 12K, the women's field had split, and there was a pack of 12 at the lead of the race. Somewhere in the 30K to 35K, we started to drop people. Not necessarily because the pace was quickening, but mostly just because people were getting a little bit tired. But 40K is the hill that they call Bitch Hill, and a little bit before that it kind of leads up into that hill with a gradual uphill, and that is where the pace really started to notch up, and by the top of Bitch Hill it was solidly just a pack of 5 of us. And there are definitely some surges, some testing of the pace, but everyone was pretty strong and hanging on as best they could. And then with about 1K to go, then things started to go really crazy and heat up for the preparation for the finish. And so at 1K, I realized I was in 5th, and I really didn't want to be in 5th. I didn't want to end up in 5th, and I thought maybe it would be best to start making up some time, some ground, sooner rather than later, rather than leaving it down to the finishing sprint. Most of the course was pretty quiet because we were out in front. The women started first this year, and so there was some people cheering, and definitely people cheering at the water stations, the feed areas, but a lot of the course was really pretty quiet. And so then I remember rounding the corner onto Main Street and hearing an absolutely deafening roar of all the spectators and the announcers and everyone cheering us in. So that was pretty cool. I ended up third, and I think the exact time was 1.7 seconds out. It was really quite close, a close sprint finish between 5 of us, and that close finish and my experience overall at the Birkie definitely makes me want to go back and race again in the future.